Alrighty, so, hello everybody, this is Alchemy Master Magavyn, coming to you with another crafting video for Dragonrealms. We've already gone over some of the other crafts, such as remedies, the gathering concepts for mining and lumberjacking, and this time we're going to be doing some blacksmithing. Probably one of the most profitable crafts out there when it comes to your work orders and things of that nature, and also tends to get you a pretty good lump sum if you're into refining certain metals and also selling them off for later on, or weapon and armor making. So to start off with, like with the other ones we've gone over, I'll go over what tools you'll need, where to get them, general crafting, what's it called? The crafting guidelines, going over step by step how to do each and every single one, and then also giving a few tips here and there. Unfortunately, just like with any other craft except for alchemy, I'm not the absolute best, so if I do make an error here or there, please forgive me. But this will be more or less just baseline, so you can see exactly like how to go about the general start. I won't be going into overly specific details, such as like which item is best to craft armor versus weapons or tools. You'll have to actually talk to a specialized smith in order to be able to take care of that. So, what we're going to start off with is tools. The tools can be sold in the society, just like with everything else. And going into the proper tool room, you'll be given an array of what you can order. Just like with the other ones, of course, it does cost a small amount of money. Not too expensive, but it can be a little bit of a rough start, especially if you're just getting off the ground. But you will want tools such as your hammer, tongs, shovel, your hammer, tongs, shovel, pliers, bellows, and also a stirring rod. Those are the primary tools you'll need to make your ingots and to make the items during the actual blacksmithing process. Your hammer, tongs, shovel, and rod can all be made by other smiths out of special materials or more durable materials, so that way they can last longer, they're faster, or you don't get quite as much as the material, quality hit using poorer tools. But also keep in mind, it's also very, very, very expensive. I think it was last I checked, to get a set of just a handful of iron tools can cost you several hundred to several thousand plat. And that's not even going into special materials that's just being made out of steel. So definitely be sure to save up for if that's what you need. Then the two other items, which are consumables, you're going to need is oil and flux. The oil is for the finished product. Flux is only for when you're making the ingots, and that is for when you want to increase its quality, but you will take a hit to the overall item count of your ingot. But I'll go over that in a minute. The unfortunate side of doing blacksmithing is you're very limited in what you can get your hands on when it comes to where to make your ingots or to actually do blacksmithing itself. The reason that is because there's only a limited amount of crucibles and anvils to work your tools on. This can create a lot of crowding. Most of the crucibles and anvils are inside our major cities. You can find some in some of the smaller towns. Can be a little tricky to find. I only know of where to find the ones in Crossing, and I think it was Riverhaven, but I don't go to Riverhaven that often. I usually hang around Crossing. There's also a few others in the town in between. I think it was Dirge has a kind of like a small little hidden spot with a couple. So definitely be ready to take a ticket and wait in line for some of those. There's also a microtransaction you can do with a wand, I guess. I don't get into that sort of thing, but from what I'm told, there is a wand you can get, and you can summon a crucible, anvil, and all the stuff needed to make your blacksmithing needs for a certain duration. I don't know exactly how long, but the wands are also limited use. I think it was like 30 or 50 uses. I couldn't say off the top of my head. So like I said, you'll need to have a little bit of patience when it comes to preparing to wait in line. So to start off with, like I said, you're going to want to get your tools, which you can buy here if you don't have any. Or if you happen to have a few, you can at least start off with, sorry, if you only have a little bit of coin and only can buy a handful of tools, I suggest you start off with a stirring rod, bellows, and a shovel. Reason being is because when you're making ingots, you can get your skill up, and you can just throw away the ingot and be perfectly fine as well. And that'll buy you enough time to make enough money to buy the rest of your tools. So if you don't want to get started immediately, just making stuff out of the crucible from metals is actually pretty good. So if you don't have any material on you and you do need materials, when you first enter the crossing, the crossing blacksmithing shop, you first enter the bookstore, so you can order your books here for what you'll need for your work orders, and then the skill of the book you're going to want. And then to the south twice, my guy owes me money. You will come to the society supply room. This, if you put order, will show you a list of what you can get your hands on. So each of these nuggets, based on their size, whether they're tiny, massive, large, each have different volumes, so please keep that in mind. Tiny is 1, massive was 10 uses, so we'll get into the specifics of why that's important here in a minute. But you can also go with straight ingots right off the bat if you don't want to be doing all the mixing and just want to get straight into the actual smithing. So, let's go. How much coin do we got? Okay, so I got a little bit. So let's go with the iron ingot. So number 7. So we got the 2 iron nuggets. And then we'll head north, and then let's see. Pile of fuel, waste bucket, ingot cutter. Okay, cool. So, as per with anything else, like your hunting grounds and stuff like that, always make sure that nobody else is here. You know, you don't want to be rude and start using the limited resources that are in the world. So, be kind and courteous as per the normal. And sometimes people will have stuff in the crucible already, and you throw your stuff in there and start mixing it. You could cost them a great amount of plat, cause yourself a great amount of headache, and sometimes bloodshed. So definitely make sure nobody's here, and if they are, see if they're using it first before just hopping in, whether it's the crucible, the anvil, or whatever other ones in any other craft. So keep that in mind, please. But seeing how this room is empty, let's go ahead and get started on that. So, whoops. We're in the wrong belt. Okay, let's stow the nugget in my backpack. Whoops, spelled nugget wrong. Okay, so open my pack, rim belt, if you can, I do suggest getting a crafting belt. It's actually pretty nice to do so. They're a little spendy, between 500 to 1,000 plat, so you probably won't be able to get it off the bat. However, you can store your tools inside your vault or with the clerk, so always keep that in mind. Smithing itself is do I even have No, I don't. Okay, so I gotta actually buy tools first. Smithing itself, The tools are pretty weighty, just like with everything else, but you can also, you will need to repair them at the clerk as well, so keep that in mind. But as for tools, order two, whoops. Two. I already have a shovel. I forgot. I keep thinking my engineering tools are my blacksmithing tools. And I don't do blacksmithing a whole lot. The only time I really do blacksmithing is when I'm making my pewter for my alchemy. Order 7. So the flux, we won't be getting our hands on because we're not going to be increasing the quality of our stuff, but I'll still go over how to go about doing that. Wire brush is for when you're repairing your tools, and the cleaning cloth is to modify what they'll look like for later on. So, let's okay, so now starting off with your crucible, please, please, please always look inside the crucible first. If you are using a rare material or difficult to obtain material, and you don't look inside, and you start your craft immediately, and there happen to be something in there mixed with it, you will ruin your mixture. I've done this a lot of times with ninium and other supplies, and wasted a great deal of time and a lot of money. If you mix anything together, you cannot take it apart no matter how many times you cut it down or mix it with a pure material. There will always be something in there. So if you mix ninium and nickel, no matter how often you try to dilute the nickel inside there, there'll always be a little bit there, ruining anything you're actually after. So please always look inside. So thankfully there's nothing in there. We will get our nuggets from the backpack. Put nuggets in crook. Now keep in mind as well, there is a item capacity inside of the crucible. An ingot at max can be 210 volumes large. However, a crucible cannot exceed 22 items or a total of what would be 210 volume ingot, whichever comes first. So if your total would have been 209 at the last one you put in, you try to put in a nugget worth 2 volume, you'll get a round time, and it'll state that you cannot place this in there because it is dangerous. At that point, you'll either have to make 2 batches and then cut the 2-piece ingot and then remix the 2 together if you really want to, or just deal with the 209, or find a 1-piece nugget inside there, pull it out, and then you can put the 2-piece in for the max ingot itself. But in this case, we're just going to go with a 20 volume ingot. And now to start off with, if you look inside your crucible, you will see what's actually in there. And if you have a different volume of amounts, like large, medium, massive, you count. And, oops, there you go. If you count the crucible, it'll let you know how many of each nugget's in there, so you can keep careful track of what you need. So, now that we have our items in there, we want to get our rod. And then it is stir crook with my rod. There we go. So now, the better your blacksmithing skill is, the better quality will come out, just like with any other craft you have. But you need to be very careful about as you're mixing through, because certain things will pop up, like once again with everything else, that you need to attend to. So this one says, as you complete working, the fire dies down and needs more fuel. So this means you need to get a shovel. And then, boy, what was the push fuel in. Oh wow, I'm drawing a brain fart at the moment. Let's see. Okay, so let me do a real quick check. Oh, I can't believe I completely forgot what the command for that one was. I'm sorry. Usually I'm much more prepared for this, but... Okay. Push fuel with my shove. Okay, yep, I remembered. So if your fire dies down, you want to push fuel with your shovel. You'll get a small round time, and then you can put away your shovel. Let's see. And then we're going to mix all over again. So this one actually turned out pretty good, so we don't got to worry about meddling with anything. Again, we're doing good. Now the good thing is as you're doing your mixing and stuff like that, if you're starting off with nothing but raw material, you can throw all 22 volume or a 22 item count into the Crucible, and let's say it only makes 22 because you only got the small nuggets, and you want to make that 210 ingot. You'll actually throw 21 of the next set of nuggets in there, and then also the ingot, and then it'll make a larger ingot and a larger ingot and a larger ingot up to 210. So you don't have to worry about trying to throw in a total of 210 volume because that is actually impossible. So it dies down, needs more fuel, so I need to get my shovel again. Then push fuel with my shovel. Now, you don't have to keep putting away your tools, but usually if the ingot is done inside the Crucible, it'll pop out. And if your hand have an open hand, it'll pop in your hand. All right. Looking good so far. And this usually will give you experience. So yeah, it'll still give you experience. However, my experience is a little high to be able to really gain anything out of it. And just like with everything else, the better quality your tools are in and the better item or material your tools are made of, the better quality overall will come out, as well as your experience with the actual craft itself. So always keep that in mind. Always try to keep your tools up to the best level possible. And the good thing is, if you want to be repairing your own tools with almost anything you'll be working with craft-wise, blacksmithing is the way to go for at least 50 ranks to get the advanced tool repair. That way, instead of 50-second round times, you cut down like 10. So definitely good to go for. It's not a must. You can still go to the clerk and have them repair it for you, but I prefer to be fixing my own stuff. You can repair your own weapons and armor and stuff like that, but I don't. I just let the Catrox fix it for me. Here we go. So as you see right here, The metal quickly cools and you pick up the iron ingot, and just as I said before, the item is now in my hands. So let's put the rod away. And then, my ingot. So, just like we had planned, we got a 20 volume ingot made of metal. It is above average quality, so it's not that great. If we really wanted to bump that up to a better quality, this is where you would use flux, okay? Now, with flux, you can only have one item in the crucible, and then you pour the flux in, and then you'll start mixing your crucible, just like everything we just did here, all over again. So if you have to, and you want to make a good quality ingot off the go, mix your entire ingot together first, then use the flux to make it better. Now keep in mind also you'll experience a massive loss in total volume. So I think it was 50% if you do not have the technique of volume loss. And if you do have the technique, I think it was 20% loss overall. So definitely if you plan to be refining a lot of your stuff and you don't want to lose too much material, get yourself that technique to assist with that. Like I said though, I'm not going to be using the flux to help increase its quality since this is just an example video. But if that's what you're aiming for, be ready for that. The flux is pretty cheap. It does have a consumable count, so definitely keep that in mind. But now that we have our ingot, actually let's go get the oil. I need oil. 6. And then, one thing I did forget, ingot cutters. If you are melting a material for somebody else, but they want to give you like some of the metal to mess with on your own, you can use the ingot cutters to cut the metal as you see fit or as you need. You will turn cutter to let's say 10. You dial the device and ready for cutting, and then you're going to push my ingot with cutter, and then this will cut it to the proportions, and then it will let you know which hand the cutter actually broke the item off into. So definitely keep that in mind. If you're just making a large ingot and you don't want to make a bunch of small pieces for the item count reasons, you can just keep it in one giant ingot and then make it at the anvil, then the extra stuff will break off. So that's actually a pretty nice thing overall. So let's go to an anvil. No. Shoot. So alright, so just outside this engineering area, outside this forging area, forgive me, there's an anvil out here you can use. However, unfortunately, you're also open to getting pickpocketed, so be ready for that. And just like with everything else, unfortunately, this room can be a little hard to tell if somebody's actually here to work on the anvil, so be careful with that. Let's look on anvil. Nothing. Oh no. Go building. I forgot. I need the book. Order 1. I'm being really off today. Wow. So. Okay, so now let's start this. We'll put the ingot inside my bag. Swap. What do we want to make? I am not skilled enough to be making tools. So we'll turn book to chapter 6. Okay. Actually, you know what? Whoops. Let's do this. And my typing's off today. Wow. I'm not having a great day. Let's do this. So you can get your natural blacksmithing book, weaponsmithing, or armorsmithing books overall. We're going to go with an weaponsmithing book today. Order 7. Swap. Read. Turn book to chapter 1. Turn my book to chapter 1. The general concept for all smithing is more or less going to be the same. However, the only difference is for weapon and armor, you'll have to assemble some stuff, which I'll go over as we go through. So, reading the book, let's look at making a metal dagger. Turn my book to page 3. A very simple weapon to make. It requires a 2-volume ingot, so we have 10, we're okay with that, and a finished wooden hilt. Now for that, you'll have to go to the tool store. However, you cannot go to order and see what is actually in there, unfortunately. You need to, where's it at? Read sign. Locating crate. There we go. It's the crate. The steel crate inside the room actually contains some of the items you're going to need for the assembly process. I think you can make a fair amount of this through engineering shaping and or outfitting. Where's it at? The leather backing and cloth padding, I'm sure you can make through outfitting. I'm not sure about the hilts though. That's something I never actually looked into very much. So it said, where's it at? I need a finished wooden hilt. Buy wooden hilt. Gets wooden hilt. Oops, hilt. It helped if I spell stuff correctly. Holy crap, I'm not. Okay. Oh, oak hilt. Buy oak hilt. Okay, wow. So it is pretty cheap to buy, silver and change. So we will stow hilt in my backpack. And then let's go ahead and be... Ah, come on. Ugh. Damn it. Well, whoops, did I go too far? I went too far. Urgh. Okay, He is making something on this anvil. So we are going to have to unfortunately wait a moment. I do apologize for this. Unfortunately, I didn't quite think ahead, and it's showing. So I am sorry. Alright, cool, he's done. Alright, so get ingot. Put ingot on anvil. Alright, cool. Thankfully it didn't take a lot of time. So, from the actual start, the best item to start off with, training-wise, when it comes to material, you want something with high workability. So I think it was copper and or tin is a good starting material if you're going to be doing blacksmithing and doing work orders. So once we get the ingot on the anvil, we'll study my book. Completely understand all facets of crafting and design, which means I'm good. Stove, get tong, get hammer. You need hammers and tongs in your hand or you cannot start this process. Hammer, ingots on anvil. Oh boy. I am not having luck today. Let's see. Pound ingot. There we go. Pound ingot on anvil with my hammer. Oh, just pound ingot. Okay, so there we go. Sorry. So pound ingot with my hammer. If you do not have your tongs in hand, it'll state that you can't because the material would be unstable. So be sure to have both. The forging process succeeds exceptionally well, free mistakes, so we're good to keep pounding. However, instead of pound ingot, the item is changed, which we're going to be dagger. Also, quick note. I needed 2 volume of a metal inside my backpack. You can see where it's split, and it put the unused portion in my backpack itself. In the last video, which was all audio, I had stated it falls to the ground. Most of the crafting stuff I've dealt with, it always fell to the ground at your feet, so I interpreted that this would do the exact same thing. It does not. It goes into your bag, so keep that in mind. So now, instead of pound ingot with my hammer, we want to pound dagger with my hammer. Now, eventually, the fire will die down. So you'll have to use bellows to stoke the fire eventually, which, if it pops up, I'll show you. It's not always guaranteed to do so, and that is actually a nice thing about this. You're not always going to meet a specific set of requirements to keep going. I've had cases where all I had to do was shovel the coal into the fireplace once, and I was able to complete my craft no problem. But if you're going to be doing large amounts, it will pop up eventually. Okay, another good one. I also don't have the technique for speed. Craft blacksmith. I've only got some like real basic blacksmithing. Anything really. I mostly went for the smelting to help increase my initial training for quality, because I wasn't expecting to be doing as much as I am now. And then the metal refining for the less of a loss during the actual refining process. So we're going to keep pounding the dagger. And it looks like we're actually doing pretty good, so I can't complain too much. This is fairly beneath my level. I'm still learning a little bit off of it, but Ooh, I gotta spend my TDPs. I keep forgetting about that. precision. Metal takes shape without any faults. Normally I wouldn't pray for this, but I really hope it actually does do. It actually starts to, the fire starts to die down, so I can at least show you. If the fire starts to die down, let's see. Then you'll need the bellows to. You want to push my bellow, and then it'll stoke the fire. If you start noticing defects in the material you have, then you'll want to, in this case, turn Dagger with my tongs. It'll flip it over, and then you can start working straightening out the other side. Now, mind you, this is also if your skill... actually, perfect example right here. The Dagger could do some straightening along the horn of the anvil. Ask and you shall receive. So we're going to want to turn Dagger with my tongs. Then once that's done, we'll turn it. There we go. You tap lightly. And the other thing too is even in between having to do the fixes, the turning, the pushing bellows, the pushing fuel, other problems can pop up. So definitely pay attention when that's going on. Whoops. Not turn, pound. Here, okay, so here we go, cool. So, Dagger's complete and ready for a quench in the hardening, for a quench hardening in slack tub. So, we're going to stow left and right. Once the round time's done. Now that our hands are empty, push tub. There we go. You believe you can assemble the two ingredients together when you would acquire. Ready for grinding and polishing. So because this is a weapon, we want to keep turning the grindstone. So you want to put turn grindstone until it is now spinning fast. And then you will push grindstone with my, in this case, whoops, my dagger. With dagger. Okay, so it's just push grindstone with dagger. Okay, I guess I gotta assemble first. So let's get our hilt. And then assemble hilt with dagger. Oh, wow. Oh my goodness. Oh, I gotta assemble first. Oh my gosh. Okay, so to assemble item 1 with item 2. In this case, hilt with dagger. And then we're going to want to push on the grindstone. Oh, it has been forever since I've messed with this. I do apologize. So once we're done grinding, now we are ready for oil. So get oil. And it's pour oil on my dagger. Yes, there we go. And ta-da, apart. I do apologize for the difficulty. Like I said, I don't have a super amount of knowledge on this, so I'm refreshing memory alongside you guys, so hopefully it wasn't too confusing. Your oil does have a use amount, so 50 uses, quite a bit. As for the dagger, so it's not too bad. Good condition. Weighs 10 stones. I don't think that matters for anybody. And it's worth 6 silver. Let's analyze it. Outstanding quality. So we're actually second or third from the Mastercraft. I think it's second from Mastercraft. So this actually turned out really well. The dagger was an extremely easy piece to make. So I can't talk, I can't type, and I can't even play the game. It was made by someone with abilities close to my own. Obviously, I'm the one who made it, and I am knowledgeable enough to know that it was used with 2 volumes. You can actually melt down items that you have back into their base materials. However, you will not get all of it out. If you put like 10 ingots into an item when you do reclamation, I think you only get half to 2/3 of what was made. So definitely be sure when you make something that it is what you want made. And if you tend to reclaim something, don't forget you're not going to get everything out of it. So it's nice to have, especially when you use a rare material. It's not a complete loss, but yes. As I said before, blacksmithing is one of the best when it comes to work order profit compared to most other places. But you can also make a really nice chunk of change when selling to people. I myself am not a super big fan of blacksmithing overall. I literally learned just enough so I can repair my alchemy tools. And all I needed was 50 ranks in order to be able to do that. All the other ranks you see is literally nothing but smelting of pewter, which I have a lot of. With blacksmithing, you can go into 3 different types of crafting with the techniques: armor smithing, weapon smithing, and of course your standard blacksmithing. If you just want to go to pop it all out very quick and easy, go with standard blacksmithing and then just make trinkets or random little items. They're the easiest to make. They don't require any assembly that I've seen thus far, and you can just throw it away or turn in work orders with it. Your work orders are mostly dependent on the metal that it comes from, if I recall correctly. So making it out of a good steel or a really high quality iron will get you some money, but making it out of like platinum, gold, ninium, or any of the other rare materials will net you far more. Compared to alchemy, which is the worst when it comes to doing work orders, blacksmithing does you very well, and you can make some good coin, especially as a trader. If I recall correctly, a trader once told me you actually get a little bit more when doing work orders because of the trader's perk, so it's a nice thing. I don't know how to budget the what the prices are for blacksmithing itself. Like I said, unfortunately, you're going to have to speak to mostly a fellow smith about details. And if you need certain mix ratios for some things, like some things might require a ninium mixed with a softer metal like iron or whatnot to get a certain balance out of it. So you'll have to really engage with them, but it can be fairly interesting to come up with some combinations and work those out. Another good thing about blacksmithing is not only can you make weapons and armor, but you can make a mass variety of tools for people, and that's another really good money maker. A lot of people are looking for engineering tools, tinkering tools, alchemy, and a bunch of other stuff as well. And then you can also improve your own tools for, depending on what you get, almost no cost because you can gather your own materials and since you're making your own stuff. So definitely worth kind of delving into some if you really want to, but it can be a little bit of a spendy start as you saw with some of the prices. Every tool kind of sits about 6.5 silver, so go out, hunt for a little while, get some of those pelts, and then start working into it as much as possible. This is also where the mining video I made comes in handy because you can actually go out and mine your own materials. When you find the rare materials, you can smelt them down, store them later, deed them up, throw them in your vault, let them collect dust for the next 5.5 years, and you're good to go when you need those. And then also, like I said, with the work orders, you can make good money. Let's see. Now, techniques, it is very hard to say what you should and should not get. It depends on which branch you plan to go down. It depends on what you plan to make or what you want to specialize in. Once again, I would talk with a smith. They're more knowledgeable and they might be able to point you in a bit of a better direction. But like I said, if you're just going to be doing training, that's all you want to do, and you're not sure if you want to delve too hot and heavy into it, go into the accessories, the baseline blacksmithing, learn the increased skill in your accessories, which is the first one you can get off of it, and make that, and you can be slightly ahead of the curve on the technique versus skill range, and make higher tier stuff, and it's a nice little passive thing to work on. But yeah, once again, as a reminder, always be sure to keep your tools in shape and clean for the best quality stuff. However, with that being said, I really do hope you guys enjoyed yourself. I'm sorry for the bit of confusion in the very beginning. Like I said, it's been a little bit, but I wanted to make this crafting video for the younger folk out there who want to look into getting it started. If you have any questions, you're always free to track me down in-game or in Discord. I am inside of one of the crafting channels. So if you ever see me out and about, always feel free to pull me aside and ask. I will never ignore anybody. I'm always glad to help, and if I don't know, I can usually point you in a fair direction of who you can talk to. With that, I hope you guys had fun, and I hope your adventures are as eventful as mine. Have a good day.